in the Shulchan Aruch, Simin Kuf Yud Vav, regarding our Gemara. We had in the Gemara yesterday that the Gemara said that there's a major machlokes between Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, and how to understand the pasuk when it says "Safta diganecha." Right, the pasuk says right before the wide line, the Lamed Hey Amid Beis. Right, the second line before the wide line, it says Tana Rabbanon, Safta diganecha. Right, we learned yesterday. The pasuk said you have to gather your grain. The Gemara asks, Matam Loma. What do you need to tell me you have to gather your grain? The Torah says, I'll give you rain, I'll give you grass for your animals. You will eat, you'll be satiated. But what does the pasuk tell us? You gather your grain. Of course, you'll gather your grain. What do you think you're going to do? You're going to get grain. Hashem is going to bless the crops. So of course you're going to gather. Why does the Torah tell you that you're going to gather your grain? So Rabbi Shmuel says because the pasuk is trying to teach you the idea of you're supposed to have minik derech eretz. You're supposed to work a certain amount. That you're supposed to have. Morning, Mike. We learned yesterday that you're supposed to work, besides your learning. Morning. You're supposed, you think if we open the door, the Wi-Fi will be better? I mean, it's freezing up a little bit with Mike. Mike able to hear us, or it's frozen up?
Good morning, Rabbi.
Morning. Do you think it's freezing up a little bit? Is it because you're in a cell phone difficult area, or it's because or you think it's just maybe here we should open the doors here? Maybe it'll be better for the Wi-Fi.
Now it's good, Rabbi. Good morning. I can hear you well.
Okay, very good. So we learned yesterday that one opinion in the Gemara says that a person should be, in addition to his studying of Torah, he should be hinag bo minag derech eretz. He should go ahead and spend a certain amount of time working and earning a living. That's what the Gemara said, and that will be very helpful for him because he's not going to go ahead and earn a living. So then he's not going to be able to have time to learn Torah because he's going to be so preoccupied with his not having financial stability. It's going to take him away from learning Torah, right? He's not going to have the time, the mindset, and so on and so forth. Gemara is the language of Rashi is because if he's going to need to come on to people because he's not making any parnasah, he's going to be batel midivrei Torah. He's going to he's not going to be able to spend time from divrei Torah, which would sound like he won't be able to learn. He won't be able to learn because he's be so preoccupied in earning a living because he has no living. He has no living. He's going to be running around collecting money. The language of the Shulchan Aruch is, it's a much stronger language, which comes from Pirkei Avot, which which he says Torah that doesn't have malacha, and he says it's sofa betela. The Torah, it's v'goreres avon. If he's not going to have any malacha, if he's not going to earn any living, eventually it's going to cause sin because if he's going to be poor, it's going to take him away from his creator. Now the question is, we all know there are a lot of poor people that are not taken away from their creator. A lot of poor people are poor, and they do the right thing in life. Unless there's enough people that are affected by the poverty, they don't have enough money, then they'll start they'll questioning whether they should buy kosher and all that stuff, or maybe other expenses, and he's not gonna be doing everything that he's supposed to do. But yet, nevertheless, even though the Shulchan Aruch says that a person has to earn a living, but he says the malacha should not be the main thing. Ela arad. The work should be more temporary. The Torah should be the main focus. Now, this concept, I don't know if enough people live the life according to what it says here in the Shulchan Aruch, because the Shulchan Aruch and the Chavetz Chaim writes that how much he should only do kidei panasoto. You should do what you need to earn, what you need to support yourself. And he says you have to be careful from the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara tells a person that you have to spend your whole day to earn this living. And a person should ask himself, what does he need? What does he need? What does he need in life? What are the things you have to have in life that you can't do without? You can't do without food, without clothing, without shelter. There's certain basics in life. And then if you live life that you're trying to earn a living, even the word earning a living, what does earning a living mean? I'm able to live. Why do you say, Morris? Right? That's what the focus is supposed to be, and that's how it's supposed to be. I want to learn our Gemara today. And we'll see our Gemara talking about this concept. Now, the Gemara says, look at our Gemara. Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi. Morris, we're about 10 lines into the wide lines. Lamed Hey Amid Beis. Now we're going to the Gemara where we got up to yesterday. Amar Rabba Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi. Boru'ei, you have to come and see, the Gemara is now going to contrast the early generations and the later generations. There is a tremendous difference between the early generations and the late generations. Listen to the great difference between the generations. The Gemara says the following. Early generations, you have it, Rabbi Yehuda Bar Eloi, Morris. It's right over here. It's about 10 lines into the wide lines on Lamed Hey Amid Beis. Dorot HaRishonim, the early generations, Asu Torotan Keva. The Torah was their main focus. To learn Torah, do mitzvot, Mona Yosef HaTzadik, U'malachtan Arai. And their work was more temporary. Most of the day they were learning, and a minority of the day they were working. Their work was not their main focus of the day. The work was, I gotta work. I need to make a living. How much do I need to make a living and to live? And you know what? And the Gemara says, V'zu niskayma biyadam, and they were successful. They were successful in their work, and they were successful in their learning. They were successful. They had most of the day, the focus of the day was to study Torah and to do mitzvot, and then a minority of the day was working. However, Dorot HaAchronim, the later generations, Asu Malachtam Keva. Their focus was that the Malacha was the main priority. That's what they focused on. And the Torah Tanarai, and their study of Torah was secondary, was second to the work. And they weren't successful both at their work and both at their financially in the later generations. It seems that they made out better in the earlier generations when they worked less and they learned more than working more and learning less. That's what it sounds like from the language of the Gemara.
Rabbi.
And, yes.
So the Gemara is considering itself the later generation.
Correct.
And for us, it's the earlier generation.
Right. But compared to the Gemara is comparing them, comparing to their time, compared to the early generation, they consider the later generation. And this idea.
So which generation they're talking about? They're talking about the generation, or because this is one day talking. It's after the Beit HaMikdash.
Right. It would seem that after the Beit HaMikdash, there were different, and there was a time period. The Gemara was the Amoraim. You see, when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, there was the Tanoim. That was like Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Tarfon, like we have in the Haggadah. The rabbis like Rabbi Akiva They are from the time of the destruction of Beit HaMikdash. So I would think it's referring to the early generations, it's like Rabbi Akiva and those generations. And the later generations, almost probably like the Amoraim, the later rabbis, like Abaye, Varava, the rabbis that were called the Amoraim. That's what it would seem like to me. We have to see more what other what commentators would say about it. Now,
Got it. Thank you.
now he makes another observation. Now listen to this next observation. V'Amar Rabba Bachana, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Bachana, you have it, Morris, as the name Rabbi Yochanan, Mishum Rabbi Eloi. Another observation, the same rabbi, in the name of the same rabbis. Bo'urei, come and see, Shalom Kidorot HaRishonim, Dorot HaAchronim. That the difference between the early generations and the present generations, and the later generations. Dorot HaRishonim, the early generations, Hayu Machnisim, they would bring as Peroteihem Derech Teraksubmom. They would bring the fruit through the front door of the house, and that obligated the fruit in Masrot. In order, they wanted the fruits, and we're going to explain this in a minute. They wanted their produce to be chayev and maaseh. We know the Torah says that you have to take off maaseh. Torah says you have to take off 10% from your crop every year and give it to the Levi, right? And you have in the 7-year cycle, the first 6 years, 10% goes to the Levi. And the early generations were excited, were happy to go ahead and bring themselves into the obligation of bringing maaseh. And there's a certain technical rule. In order to be obligated to give maaseh, in general, there's a 3-step process to be obligated in maaseh. The 3 conditions have to be met. Number 1, the produce has to grow. Let's say your grain, your wine, your oil, right? The produce has to grow a certain amount. It's a certain amount, a certain height, a certain growth, a certain amount that the produce has to grow. It has to meet that condition. If the produce was cut too early, before it grew a certain amount, then it's not obligated in maaseh, and every type of food has its own amount that it needs to grow in order for it to be obligated in maaseh. Number 1. Number 2, it's only when you complete the Gemar Malacha. That means you cut the grain and let's say you whatever you need to do to, usually let's say if you would grind the grain and you would put it into a pile and you would smooth the pile, you finish doing whatever work that you need to do for the grain that you need to do in the field, whatever the common work that was done in the fruit, or the whatever the pile you would whatever. We have to see more about that in the Mishnayot. But it means you did the processing of the grain. You finished whatever you let's say you cut the grain, you winnowed it, you threw it out, you threw it to the wind and separated the good part from the bad part, and so on and so forth. It's not in its raw state, so to speak. You did a certain amount of work, you finished, you prepared the job. That's called, and also the Mishnayot will talk about when is it called that you completed it? When is it called that you completed the processing for the food? Once you completed a certain amount of what's necessary, that makes it obligated in maaseh. And the third condition that needs to be met is that it has to go ahead and come into the house, coming into the house. That it has Maria Pnei Abayis. You brought it in the house. Now, or you brought it into a courtyard. Let's say you have a space in your house that's very well watched, and so on and so forth. And we'll see that also should be also considered would obligate you in maaseh. So the early generations, they made sure to do what they do after it grew a certain amount. They cut it, and then they whatever they need to do in the fields with the grain, and they separated the good part, the bad part, They finished processing the grain, and then they brought it right into the house, and therefore they were obligated in Maaseh. But the second generation, the later generation, they wanted to get off the hook. They did not want to be obligated in Maaseh. They wanted, so to speak, it seems like sometimes there are certain loopholes, like a tax loophole, right? Everybody's happy to get that legal loophole, right? All the people are looking for that legal loophole. Yesterday was April 15th. I know they extended the tax season. But the problem is but if it's a question, here it's a question of a mitzvah of Maaseh. And the people, the later generations looked for the loophole not to obligate them in Maaseh. So what did they do? Instead of bringing the fruit in, the produce in the normal way, they brought it in through the back door, so to speak. They brought it through the back of the house, through the yard that was back and through the back door, so to speak, or they brought it through the roof. They brought the produce in through the roof instead of through the front door. And as a result of that, they were exempt. Morning, Sammy. They were exempt. Michael's there. He's waiting to say hello to you. As a result of that, because they brought it in, Sammy says hello, Michael. And he said,
Good morning, Sammy. Hi, Sammy. Good morning.
As he says hello. He's at the Sammy's at the Kodosh. She's saying a tefillah. And he said, Sammy also says hello to Yosef Hamon as well. So the Gemara says, they wanted to exempt themselves from Maaseh. That's what the Gemara says. They went through the place, through the house, or through the guarded area of the courtyard. They wanted to be obligated in the great mitzvah of Maaseh, of giving the to the Levi. However, they would take it from the field, and they would bring it, and they would let's say bring it in. They brought it into the house through the roof, not through the front door of the house, so to speak, through the roof. They put the stuff on the roof, and then from the roof they brought it down into the house. Derech gagot, or derech chatzerot, or they went through place areas that chatzerot that were not guarded, or derech kafifot, or they brought it in from the back door, from the outside, from the street that's on the outside of the back of the house instead of from the front of the house. Why? Kedei lepotrom min hamaseh, because they wanted to be exempt from maseh. And really, the Torah is, and obviously that's wrong. Take care, Sammy. It's wrong to try to avoid mitzvah. If you want to avoid paying a tax, and you have a legal way to avoid paying a tax, I don't think there's anything wrong if it's legal, right? Anybody disagrees with me? I don't think anything's wrong. It's legal. You have a right to avoid a tax, correct? But when you want to avoid a mitzvah, even though technically it's legal, I didn't violate the mitzvah because I did not have an obligation of the mitzvah. But you set it up not to have the obligation of the mitzvah, and that's not a good thing. To set something up to try to avoid the opportunity of doing the mitzvah, that is something that's not a good thing. That's what the Gemara in the, how do you like that? Now, I saw one of the commentators explain that they want to say that the later generations, even it was universal. Even the learned people, even the Talmid Chachamim, they would bring it in. This is the opinion of the Tosfos Rid. The Tosfos Rid, it says, the Gemara says, Dorot Achronim, the later generations. And it doesn't say that there were, so you can learn it was the majority of the people did it that way, and the minority of the people did it the right way. That's how you could learn, and meaning the people that were on a higher level brought it in through the house, through the door, because they wanted to be obligated. It was only the Hamonam, the people, and many of the average folk wanted to get out of it. However, the Tosfos Rid wants to suggest that the fact that it says Dorot Achronim, that this seems to be the common for the later generations. This is how they did it. They did it because they were concerned. He says over here, they were concerned that maybe there would be a takala in the masrot. Maybe, something, something, they would, if they would be afraid if they would take off the maseh, maybe the maseh wouldn't be used properly or eaten properly, or whatever needed to be done with the masrot. Let's say, there's also there's maseh rishon, there's maseh sheni. It has to be brought to Yerushalayim, and so on and so forth. And maybe there were some concerns that they had regarding the maseh, that if they would be obligated and they would be separated, it wouldn't be done properly. The people, it wouldn't be taken care of the way the maseh is supposed to be taken care of, and therefore maybe that would be the reason why they didn't take off. But at the end of the day, the Gemara seems to be criticizing such a thing, that you did not, that there wasn't, the maseh wasn't taken off. Now we have an interesting thing, tzitzit. There is an idea today that you should go, the law is you have a four-cornered garment, you have to put on tzitzit, correct, Morris? But if you're not wearing a four-cornered garment, you do not have a mitzvah to put on tzitzit. The Torah doesn't obligate you to put on tzitzit if you don't have a four-cornered garment. But what we do is we go to buy ourselves a four-cornered garment because we want to bring ourselves into a mitzvah. So there's different levels. The level that's no good is for sure when you go ahead and you take away the opportunity of a mitzvah. When you have an easy way, when the mitzvah is there and you're trying to avoid the mitzvah. Today we're on a higher level. Not only we don't try to avoid the mitzvah, we're trying to bring ourselves into the mitzvah by going out to buy ourselves a four-cornered garment. And you can imagine that it's a great merit. It's a great merit for the generation that we go ahead and we bring ourselves into a mitzvah by going and buying a four-cornered garment and be able to form a mitzvah. It shows how much we love the mitzvah. If we see how it's criticized, it seems like he's observing how the generations went down in level because they were trying to avoid the mitzvah. So it's a great thing when we're trying to bring ourselves into a mitzvah, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to bring ourselves into the mitzvah. Now, I want this to say a chidush. It seems obvious to me that these two statements, we had two statements from the same rabbi, observations of the early generations and the later generations. The early generations seemed to be better in two things. They were better that the Torah was their main focus and work was secondary. And also they brought their food in a way to be obligated in the mitzvot. In contrast to the later generation, they tried to exempt themselves from mitzvah. I want to say that one is an offshoot, is a byproduct of the other. Listen to this, Mars. The early generation, Mike, you hear? Yosef, listen to this chidush. The early generation, their focus was Torah, and they worked, but their focus was Torah. Therefore, they were looking to do mitzvot. Therefore, they were the ones who brought it in through the front door because they wanted to be obligated in the Maaseh. The later generations who were not focused on Torah, Torah was secondary, their primary focus was work. Therefore, they weren't inspired enough. Therefore, they were looking to get out of doing the mitzvah. How do you like that? Meaning, I believe they're directly connected, both things. There are.
Beautiful, Rabbi. It's a mindset.
It's a mindset. If a person, the more a person is evolved in Torah, the more he's going to be looking to do mitzvot. And that's why they were looking to bring it into the right way. People are not involved in Torah; they're not looking to do the mitzvot. Now, this thing that we said that has to see the front of the house, that in order for it to be obligated maaseh, that's only if you plan on bringing the food in the house. If you plan on selling the food and bringing it to the market, then it says you're not allowed to eat from the food, even midrabanan, even achilat arai, even there's also different types of eating. Something called a temporary eating, and there's something called a permanent eating, and there's all different halachot regarding when could you eat. Like for instance, we said let's say if the food reached a certain type of growth, and let's say it reached a certain type of growth, and let's say but you didn't bring it into the house, the Chachamim would say you can eat a temporary eating, but not a permanent eating. Meaning, even though we said you need all these preconditions to be fulfilled in order for you to be obligated in Maaseh on a Torah level, but on a rabbinic level, if it did not see the front of the house, you didn't bring it in yet. Still, the rabbi said you still can't have it. You can't eat from it in a more permanent type of setting. And obviously, what's called permanent, these are all technical things that would have to be looked into. Now, okay, let's continue in the Gemara. So the Gemara says, now, Machlisa Perasem Derech Gagos, Derech Hatzerot, Derech Hafifos, Kedei Lepot Min HaMaaseh. To Amar Rav Yanai, because Rav Yanai said, Eina Tevel. Tevel is the food that if you did not take off Truma and Maaser, Eina Tevel Mischayav Maaser. Tevel is not obligated in Maaser Ad Sheyireh Pnei Bayit, until it sees the front of the house. Shenema Bi'arti HaKodesh Min HaBayit. The Torah says that in the fourth year on Pesach, the fourth year and the seventh year of Shemitah of the cycle, right? There's every 7 years. There's in every 7 years. So there's the first year you take off Maaser Rishon, Maaser Sheni, 10% to the Levi, and 10% you bring to Yerushalayim. You repeat that the second year also the cycle, Maaser Rishon, Maaser Sheni. The third year is 10% to the Levi and 10% to the poor person. That's the third year. And then on the fourth year, on Pesach, on the fourth year, you go ahead and you make a declaration. And what's the declaration that you go ahead and you say? You go to the Beit HaMikdash and you go ahead and you say, I removed the Arti HaKodesh Min HaBayit. I make a declaration and I say, I removed the Kodesh Min HaBayit. I gave all my masrot. There's a declaration. It's called Vidu Masrot. You have to declare, I did it. I did what I need. Did. God commanded me to take off the Maaser. And I presume because it's such a serious and might be a challenging thing for a person to be on top of his game to give the proper Masrot. Therefore, the Torah gives him a special mitzvah to ensure that it happens, and he has to go ahead and make a declaration in the fourth year during the time of Pesach. He makes a declaration, I did it. I did what I did what God told me to do. I got rid of it from the house. I removed all the masrot. I gave it to the Levi, whatever needed to be done, to the poor, to the Levi, and so on and so forth. But he says, so he's darshaning the pasuk min habayit. I took it the Maaser out from the house. That means in order for it to be obligated in Maaser, it had to come through the house, come through the door, so to speak. If it came, but if it didn't come through the bayit, it doesn't say I got rid of the Maaser Kodesh from the roof, things that came through the roof. It says min habayit, so it has to come from the house. It has to go see the front of the house in order to be obligated in Maaser. Rabbi Yochanan says, he argues, he says technically it doesn't have to be through the house as long as if you put it into the courtyard. And the way some of the commentators explain, and the courtyard, the chotzer was watched, was guarded, that also is considered your obligation of Maaser. He says, Rabbi Yochanan, afilu chotzer kovan, even bringing the fruit after you did the work, the work was completed, it grew the proper size, and you finished working it, and you finished that, even you didn't bring it into the house, and even you brought it into the courtyard, that would obligate it then in Maaser on a Torah level, Shenema, because it says, it says when a sati by masa ani, when you give to the poor person, the widow, the orphan, the poor people, 10% in the third and the sixth year. So he says, and then he goes and he makes a declaration and he says, he confesses, he says, I did everything. He says, when a sati levi yatam lamana, I have given to the poor people, to the Levi, v'achlu b'sharecha, and they will eat in your gate, v'saveyu, and they will be satiated. So when it goes through the gate, so what does it mean? When it enters the gate of the courtyard, at that point, it's obligated in Maser. Okay. So the Gemara says, Chutz ben hayayin. We had in the Mishnah said that on the Peiros Haaretz, on fruit, you say a Borei Pri Eitz, but it says that on wine, what do you do on wine? What do you say? A Borei Pri Gefen. Chutz ben hayayin. And on wine, you say a Borei Pri Gefen. Maishna yayin. The Gemara wants to understand, why is wine different than all other foods? That wine, all of the drink, wine, you say a Borei Pri Gefen. Why does it have a special bracha of Borei Pri Gefen? That's the Gemara's question. Morris, you hear the Gemara's question? We said
Rabbi, this is a new question. This is a new question for them.
Right now, the Gemara is a new point. Now, right, we finished the Gemara, the previous Gemara. Now we're moving on to a new subject. The Gemara is coming back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah says there's something unique about wine. That wine has a new bracha. It's a bracha that's unique for wine. What is the bracha? Or Pri Gefen. We don't find.
Rabbi, we said because of all the mitzvot we do on the wine, right? I think.
I think we said the idea is wine. Rashi says because wine. It's true. We do mitzvot on wine. Why do we do all the mitzvot on wine when a person gets married? They do it over. There's a cup of wine. Brit Milah, there's a cup of wine. Pidyon Haben, there's a cup of wine. Right, the wine is all in all the festive places, and all these mitzvot, there's a cup of wine, because wine is chashuv. Shabbat, we do it on wine. So Rashi says, mitoch chashivoto, because wine is a very important beverage, it's special. Wine is special. Therefore, the rabbis gave it its own bracha. And Rashi says the same thing is bread. Bread is very chashuv. It's a staple of life. We need bread to live. In contrast to other foods, you go ahead and you have a piece of cake. Piece of cake is not bread. Piece of cake is whatever it is, a snack, whatever it is. Cake, bread is something chashuv. You live, it sustains you properly, bread. Therefore, because of its chashivut, because it's so important, that's why the rabbis, the Chachamim, gave it a special bracha. Is that clear? Mike?
That's very clear, Rabbi. Yes, because also when we go to China, you don't care about eating anything as long as you have some bread. You know that you can sustain your body, because in China there is not much kosher. So the only thing you care about is having some bread somewhere.
Very right. Very good.
You're gonna be able to.
Right. Mike, I don't hear you now. Mars, do you want to open the door if you don't mind? Maybe that will help the connection a little bit. Okay.
That's it. That was my own. That was just my own personal experience, Rabbi, traveling with a place where you have nothing kosher or nothing that you can really eat from anywhere. If you have bread, it's so true, because if you have bread will make you go. Bread will sustain you.
Right.
Compared to any other food, you can have any other snack, anything, you won't be able to. I don't know how to explain it, but able to function the right way. You'll be lacking energy or anything. But if you eat bread, only bread, you can your body can basically function.
Right, and if you look in the drinks and the beverages, everybody knows wine. Look what people spend for a bottle of wine. No one spells that for a bottle of soda. No one sells that for a bottle of oranges, right, Yosef Atzadik? Yosef Tzaddik, wine. People spend money on wine. Everyone understands. You have a dinner, you have wine. A special dinner, an elegant dinner, you have wine. So therefore, that's why the rabbis said you make kiddush. The Torah says, what's the mitzvah of kiddush? The Torah says, Zachar et yom HaShabbat lekadsho. Remember the Shabbat. Talk about the Shabbat. That's the mitzvah of kiddush. The Chachamim, the Rabbanan said, do it over a cup of wine, right? Most opinion says that using wine at kiddush is the Rabbanan. The kiddush is min Torah. To say kiddush, the Torah says that you have to say kiddush. Zochar et yom HaShabbat lekadsho. But the wine, who said you have to do it over a cup of wine? The Chachamim wanted to give kavod for the kiddush. That the kiddush should be something special, more unique, more special. So how do you make the kiddush more special, Morris? You do it over wine. That gives it.
Yeah, we talked about it like a few weeks ago.
That's right, but I'm reminding everybody. We're connecting the dots, Yosef Tzaddik. We're saying here also because wine is chashuv. That's why the Chacham said do it over a cup of wine. That's why you do it over a cup of wine. Now, the Gemara says, now the Gemara wants to know, Maishno Yayin. Why is wine different? Why is it that we got to go ahead and do, why does wine get its own bracha? So the Gemara says, now I gave you the answer. Rashi gave us the answer because it's chashuv. So the Gemara says, let's see how the Gemara explains it. Ilema mishum dishtani liluya ishtani libracha. Is it because there was an upgrade? What was the upgrade? It went from a fruit, from a grape, to wine. So because there was an upgrade in the quality of the product, so because of that, maybe it got a different bracha. Instead of being Boyer Priya 8, it went to Boyer Priya Geffen. So Vahare, the Gemara says, Shemet, olive oil. The Ishtani Liula. If you take an olive, beforehand it was an olive, and now it's oil. And the Gemara is thinking in a time, sometimes oil, when you drink oil, if it's, let's say you dilute the oil with some other thing and you're drinking for the oil will be very beneficial. Like the Gemara is
Rabbi, I was just thinking that the wine, the grape, the juice of the grape, you can drink it, but you can't really drink the oil.
Right. That is the
not
question.
Something you can drink the oil enjoyable, like you're gonna enjoy drinking a wine.
Right. So that's what Tosfot HaRosh asked that question, and the answer is, like we said, that you could drink it in a way like when you dilute the oil, and let's say you add, let's say, certain water to the oil or certain other liquid to the oil, and the oil will still be, and the oil is still used as the main product. It's mainly used for the oil, as we're going to see in the Gemaras coming up. So therefore, it would be the oil is much better in that state. If you in a time when you're able to eat it and drink it together with this dilution, whatever it is, and that's much better than being as an olive. And since it's much better than being as an olive, so why doesn't the olive oil get its own bracha? And we're going to see that olive oil, when you drink it in a fashion that it could be edible, when it's not dangerous, when it's not damaging, when it's edible, it's a Boyer Priya 8. The Gemara says, "V'harei shemen nishtani luliyah, lo ishtani lebracha." Even though it was upgraded to it was a better product. Have a great day. Have a great Shabbat. Even though it's a better product than before, now better product a lot of times, usually financially in the dollar amount, it's shown. Meaning you take grapes, they take grapes a certain pound. How much would it cost you for a certain pound of grapes? And wine, it costs much more for the wine. So too, let's say it's much more valuable the olive oil than the olives. So the Gemara, and yet the bracha doesn't get a bracha. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei pri hazayit. We say Bor Pri Gefen. We don't say Bor Pri Zayit. The Amar Rabbi Yehuda and Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmuel. V'chein Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Shemen Zayit B'chlan Bor Pri Eitz. An olive oil, that type of olive oil, you would say a Bor Pri Eitz. And we have to see, as we learn, we have to see why is the bracha Bor Pri Eitz? Why is it not Shehakol Niyeh B'Dvaro? But it says that olive oil, you would bake a Bor Pri Eitz. But the point that the Gemara is saying, it doesn't get a special, unique bracha, Baruch Atah Pri Hazayit. That it's the Pri Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Bori Pri Hazayit. Like the wine, very specific. The wine is Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Bori Pri Gefen. That God created the fruit of the vine. And by the way, we're going to see from, yes. Yes.
Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. But what do you want to say, Mike? What's the Gefen?
Great.
What is the translation of Gefen?
Very good. Excellent. That's because the Gemara is going to discuss this. Gefen is the tree, is the vine. You know, the grapes. The Gefen is the vine that the grapes, the branches that the grapes grow on is called the Gefen. It's the wood tree that the grapes grow on. That's called a Gefen. When you look at a vineyard and you pluck the grapes, or the grapes are attached to, there's these long, you see these long branches. That's called the Gefen. Those long branches are called the Gefen. That's the vine. Avi wants to say hello to everybody and acknowledges Mike's question. And we're going to see, interesting, that the Pri Gefen is going to refer to, the Pri Gefen is the fruit of the Gefen, which seems to be the fruit is the grapes, is the fruit of the vine. So really, we would see from the Gemara that we're thanking Hashem, Baruch Atah Pri Gefen, that he created the fruit of the vine, which is the grapes. And from the grapes, we have the wine. Because look at the Gemara. The Gemara says the following. Amri, the Gemara says, you wanted to tell me, the Gemara wanted to suggest that the reason why we have a bracha, a very specific bracha for wine, is because wine went to a higher level, as Avi likes to say, a different level. It went from a grape to wine. Yeah. And because it went from a grape to wine, it's very unique, it's very special, it's now much more important, and therefore it gets its own recognition. And therefore you talk about the vine. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, then olives also should change and get its own bracha, recognizing the olive tree, because the olive, when it went from the olive oil, also was improved from the olive to the oil. So why don't we get a special bracha there? So it seems that it's not because of the change from a lower level product to a higher level product. That's not what's the cause of the change of the bracha by wine, because if that would be the case, then there should be a change by olive as well. There should be a separate new bracha for olive oil, the same way that on the wine you make a separate bracha, you should make a separate unique bracha for the olives. So the Gemara says to that, that's not a you can't use that as a reason to deflect why wine gets its own bracha. Meaning to say, maybe it's true. Maybe the reason why wine gets a special bracha is because there was an improvement in the product. It went from a grape to wine, which the wine is an upgrade. But
also,
oil,
Rabbi,
yes,
Geffen, it's another type of growth. It's one of the 7 minim, okay? And when we're talking about the blessing, you have the tree and you have the bushes and you have the vines. Okay, the vine, it's a Geffen basically, and he's getting his own blessing basically. That's what it is,
But the question is what we have, but in the same way you have these branches by the by the vine, You have also branches by the. I'm saying that's the vine. The branches, these long branches, is the vine, and you have the clusters of grapes that grow on them, right? So you have an
Yeah.
olive tree. So you also have. Why don't we say that the olives that are on the olive tree, and then
No, but
so
the type of the way it's grow, okay, it's called metapes. It's I forgot the word in Hebrew now. It's a different type of. It's not a tree and it's not a bush, okay, and you still have like a kind of a stump, but it's a different way of grow, you know. So that's why
why
you
should
have
that make it?
to.
Why should it get a? That's why it's getting a separate bracha. That's what you're suggesting. That's why it should have a separate bracha.
Because it's a completely different kind of growth. Yeah, it's not a
But
tree and it's not a bush, you
listen,
know,
listen.
and
But again,
it's a metapes.
yeah, but Avi. I'm sorry, Yosef. What bracha do you make on the grapes?
On the grapes.
You make a Bor Priya 8. So we see that even though whatever the growth might be a little different, you're telling me about the growth, but we still call it Bor Priya 8 on grapes. So we see that how even though it might be unique, you might be right that it's unique how the vine grows, but we still say Bor Priya 8. But the same way we say Bor Priya 8 on the grape. So why is it that now the wine that comes from the grape, we're going to have a whole new unique bracha called Bor Priya Gefen, which we don't find anywhere else. We don't say Bor Priya Zayit. We don't say you created the fruit of the olive tree. We don't say that. Yet we say the fruit of the vine. We bless God for the fruit of the vine. And what's the fruit of the vine? The grapes. So why are we making such a special bracha? So that's the Gemara's question. Yes, Avi wants to say something. Yes.
Beautiful observation, and my as you guys between you and you speaking came to my mind that the reason that they mentioned.
אבי, אנחנו לא שומעים אותך, אתה צריך לדבר מול המסך. לא על הצד, מול המסך.
Oh, the reason I think is, and the rabbi mentioned that because the Geffen, and you write Yosef, the Geffen have the word Geffen contain the entire process, the aspects of the grapes, of the branches, it's contained the entire stuff. Very different than when you says Bore Priaetz or Bore, if you're saying for the olives, or it's a little bit different. Here, it's the entire. I think this is what making that special is that the Geffen it's collective, many things together. That I think that's what it's about. I think that's the reason. I think.
Okay, so we're gonna see exactly. No, yes. Let's see what the Gemara is gonna say. It's very good, Avi. So the Gemara says the following. I'm gonna end with this point here. Listen to this amazing point. It's gonna give us a new translation, by the way, of what when you say the bracha Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam, Bori Priya Gefen. What are you referring to when you say Bori Priya Gefen? To the wine, or you're thanking Hashem for the Priya Gefen is for the grape that comes from the vine. And yes, I'm referring to the wine that will come out from the grape, but the Priya Gefen is the grape. Listen to this. It's a chidush that when we're saying Bor Priya Gefen, we're thanking Hashem for what He created. The wine is something that we made, so to speak. We went ahead and we squeezed those grapes and we made that wine. So that's not what we're referring to when we're thanking Hashem for the Priya Gefen. The Priya Gefen we're referring to is the grape that grew on the vine. Yes, and you gave us the grape, and we were able to go ahead and make wine from the grape. But what are we thanking God for? When we're drinking the wine, we're thanking God for the grapes of the vine. How do you like that? Now look at this, a new chidush. Ariel, you here? Ariel, my man is here. He came in, but very quietly, modestly. He's hiding in he's like Hillel. He's hiding on the roof. No one knew that he was there. And then the story in the Midrash. He was snowed in, and then they see it. It looks like a person snowed in. Oh, this Ariel's hiding with you because of modesty. Ariel is here, by the way. I didn't acknowledge that he was here because I didn't know that he was here. I didn't. Tzniut, right, Ariel? Should always be tzniut in life. It's always a beautiful quality. But so that's the chidush. Now the Gemara says, the Gemara shoots back. Amri, the Gemara says, Hatam, you know why? You can't tell me that by the olives we don't make a special bracha. And so what did the Gemara want to say? They wanted to say, maybe the reason why you make a special bracha on wine is because wine was upgraded from a grape to wine, therefore deserves a special bracha. So the Gemara says, olives were also upgraded. It went from an olive to olive oil. So you should also make a special bracha on olive oil. And we don't. So the Gemara says there is different. Why? I can't make the bracha about the olives. I can't make bori pri azayit. Why can't I make bori pri azayit? What kind of bracha you want to make on the olive? Even if you're going to say, if you're going to say, blessed be, we want to thank God who creates the fruit of the olive, right? The fruit of the olive. Pere gufe zayit ikre. The fruit itself of the olive tree is called a zayit. That what does it mean? The fruit itself. The olives is called a zayit, right? Your zaytim is olives. So if I say bori pri azayit, you created the fruit of an olive. So the fruit of the olive, zayit might not refer to fruit of the olive tree, because people could translate bori pri azayit is the fruit. God created the fruit of the zayit of the olive. And I can't say a bracha, I can't thank God for creating the fruit of an olive. Why? The fruit of an olive is the olive oil. That's not something that I made into the oil. I was more involved in processing it and removing it from the olive to oil, and therefore that's not the appropriate bracha. I can't say the bracha bori pri hazayit, because bori pri hazayit, if zayit would only mean the tree, so then I could say you created the fruit of the olive tree, which is the olive, and then it's appropriate bracha to say, because you're recognizing God created the olives when you're eating the olive oil. But when you go ahead, if you say bori pri hazayit, zayit doesn't just refer to the olive tree, it can also refer to the what? The olive. So if I say I'm thanking God for the fruit of the olive, well, people could be understood, bori pri hazayit is the fruit of the olive, and that's not an appropriate bracha. I don't make a bracha on something that I was involved with. I make a bracha on something that God created the olive. I didn't make the olives, right? What happened? I planted a seed, and then God goes ahead and nourishes, and the sun comes, and the water comes, and the rain comes, and that makes the fruit. So therefore, I can't say the bracha bori pri hazayit. Maybe that's why I don't say the special bracha. But why? Where I could say bori pri geffen, if I say the fruit of the vine, the geffen is definitely the tree. So therefore, the fruit of the tree is referring to what? The grape. And that's appropriate. I'm thanking Hashem for the grape. I wasn't involved in making the grape. I'm involved in the wine. I'm not thanking God for the wine. I'm thanking God for the grape. And it happens to be from the grape I made the wine. So the Gemara says, so if that's the case, and you're telling me there's only a technical reason why I don't say bori pri hazayit, and really if it's an upgrade of the food, I should say a special bracha for the food. And that's why you're saying a special bracha for the wine, because it's upgraded from grape to wine. So why don't I say the bracha bori pri zayit? I should make a bracha on the olive oil, blessed be Hashem, which created the fruit of the olive tree. Zayit. And what's the fruit of that's the olive. So I should make a special bracha on the olive. And the fact is that even though we don't do that, the rabbis didn't create a special bracha, a special nusach for making on olives, even though there was an upgrade from olives to olive oil, to an olive oil that's edible, that you mix, that you something you can eat well. So why is there a special bracha for wine? You showed me that an upgrade does not obligate a new bracha. The fact that it was upgraded from olives to oil, we don't say a new bracha from the olives to the oil. So why from the grape to the wine is there a new bracha? That's the Gemara's question. Why does wine get a special bracha?
Also, Rabbi, you can add that the wine itself, even a motzi doesn't poter the blessing for the wine. You still
Right.
have to do.
Yosef is saying a very important point. That wine is very chashuv, as we said before. If a person, let's say last night you had a dinner, we spoke about this once before. You had a dinner last night, and you had bread at the dinner last night, and then they bring out a bottle of wine. Did you have to say, after you said Amotzi, they brought out wine last night? Did you have to say a bracha on the wine? Ariel, right? You hear the question? The answer is yes, because Hamotzi does not cover the wine, right, Avi? Because wine is very chashuv. It's not. Motzi covers other foods because everything else is secondary to the motzi.
But the wine.
But by Shabbat, if you had wine of kiddush, where you said a bar gefen on the wine of kiddush, right, Ariel? Or you heard the kiddush, that's like as if you said the bracha. So therefore, you do not need to say a new bracha on the wine during the meal by Shabbat, because if you drank from the kiddush wine, that covers you. Yes,
Yeah,
Yosef, yes.
Also, you can add that the wine himself, הוא מוציא את כל המשקאות, כל the other drinks. But other drinks doesn't מוציא the wine.
Very good. That's also because Yosef is saying if you drink wine, then if you want to have a cup of soda, you want to, after the wine covers the Burberry Geffen covers the other drinks, because everything else is secondary, tafel to the wine. But if you take a shakol, the one I'm saying, but other drinks are not exempt to wine. So the Gemara says, and we're going to conclude with this, Ela Ama Mazutra. Mazutra says, this, like we opened up earlier, there's something unique about wine, and the uniqueness about wine is special, and that's why wine gets its own bracha. And this uniqueness that's found by wine, the upgrade that's found by wine is much more unique than the upgrade found by olive oil. So even though there's an improvement from the olive to the oil, and the olive oil is a better product than olives, nevertheless, it's not enough of an upgrade for the rabbis to give you a separate bracha, but the upgrade of grapes to wine, that level of wine is a much greater upgrade, and because of the greatness of that upgrade, that gave it a new bracha. And what is so unique about the upgrade that it's so much greater, the upgrade of grapes to wine than olives to olive oil? The Gemara says, so the Gemara opens up, Mazuta says, Chamra Zayin. Chamra wine sustains you, fills you up, nourishes you. Wine has that ability, and we're going to see the Gemara is going to conclude, it's going to talk about it nourishes you, it fills you up when you drink wine, in contrast to than olive oil. It's a different point. Besides happy, it's a different point. It fills you up. Because, so here it's upgraded, not only it's upgraded into wine, which is also a unique beverage, but it also has this other quality. This other quality, meaning the way the commentaries say, is it has 2 points. It has this point of, this is how the Merome Southern and Sif says. It seems it has a point that it is upgraded, it's greater, it's more, it went from a grape to wine, and also it has the other quality, the second quality, that it fills you up. Because it fills you up, meaning it's a chashuv, it's very important, it's better than it was before, and it fills you up, in contrast to mishcha. This olive oil drink, if you mix the olive oil with other things and you made a nice beverage with the oil and you drank it, lo zayin. It doesn't fill you up. At this point, the Gemara is understanding it doesn't give you nutrients, doesn't really give you proper, sustains you, but we'll see more about what that means. But at the end of the day, the Gemara is going to conclude it doesn't really fill you up, and therefore it's not enough to say a new bracha. So that's what the Gemara, that's how we're going to end today. That's why the Chacham gave it a special bracha. So hopefully when we say the bracha on the wine, we should realize what we're doing, appreciating the chashivut that God gave you this upgrade. And not only it's an upgrade from what it was before, that it's in this level of wine, but also it fills you up, and therefore you're thanking Hashem, and you're recognizing, you're appreciating God for that. I want to wish everyone a Shabbat Shalom. We'll be on Sunday at 10 o'clock. All the best, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you so
Bye.
much. Shabbat
Thank you very
shalom.
much. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Yosef, what's going on over there? What happened? What's going on over there? A little snow
Shabbat
left?
shalom.
Oh, we still have snow. Look, it's still snowing,
Wow.
right?
I think the whole process. Yeah, Yosef, you ever make wine? You ever make wine, Yosef, at Tzaddik?
Yes. You know what? I was in India.
So how do you
It
make the
was
wine?
just the night before the Passover. I was in a place and we had no means of to do anything there, and we had no kosher wine. We had no matzah. So we got few Israelis together, and we went to buy some grapes,
grapes.
and we squeezed the grapes really, really well. And then we had to make a matzah. So we went. It's not the 100%.
Ariel want to know about the wine. So you squeeze the grapes, you let it lay stay.
I can't hear you, Ariel. You have to go more
Ariel
to the
wants to
middle.
tell you. He's gonna go.
Ariel, you have to speak more in the middle of the screen. I can't hear you.
Yeah, Ariel said he's gonna call you. He wants to talk to you. He's gonna call
Okay.
you. Ariel, Shabbat Shalom. Okay, and so what do? You squeeze the grapes and you let it stay a little bit. What do? Let it stay
Yeah,
over
we
a
let it
little bit?
stay all day, and we just like made a wine like that, you know. And the matzah, we just took basically how you call it, flour, and we put water, and we just like make it quickly into the oven, you know, with less than 18 minutes, and we made matzah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to wish you a Shabbat Shalom. Yosef Tzaddik.
Thank you. Thank you,
Go
Rabbi.
ahead.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.